Hit us up on Doc Reo TV. You know what time it is, folks. That's right. It's time for more Doc Reo TV. And today we're going over episode 6, Nasu Chronicles, Book of Scrolls. That's right. The Nasu Chronicles, Book of Scrolls, episode 6. Said it twice because I don't like it when I say episode 6 before the name of the show. So, I don't know, something about that. Anyway, I might have said some things in the last episode that might be a little bit confusing, and I want you all to know that I'm doing this particular project so that I can practice getting my ideas out and work on the idea to convert the book into a script. But at the same time, as I'm converting my book into a script, I'm learning how I should present it better in the format of the package itself. So this is practice for me. So if you're wondering why I'm doing this, that's why. I'm doing this for practice. I know it's getting out there to the public. I know somebody can try to steal it, but as we say, or as we used to say back in the game, nobody can really steal your idea. I mean, because they'll never really do it the same way you want it done. So with today's need of content or age of content to be needed, the only way they can really steal your idea, which these ideas are already copywritten, is to copyright it before you and actually copyright exactly what you were attempting to sell or show or create. So with that being said, these chains are getting at me, getting to me right now, getting to me. Somebody said that this weekend, get at me, dog. I'm like, yeah, okay. Not that I didn't know what he was talking about, you know, I mean, I get it, but I'm like, yeah, okay, you get at me, homie, hit me up. All right, anyway, so without further ado, let's jump into Nasu Chronicles, Book of Scrolls, episode 6. This one is called Wafu Nasu, and the song that's going with it, if you all know my songs, it's called The Play, because life's a stage, you know? You all got to be in the play. Anyway, so the sun beats down hard on the deserts of Unterra Prime, and Halal is down on one knee. And he's down on one knee, it looks like he's praying, and he's got this big black cloak on him while the sun's beating down hard and heavy on him. And he bows his head, and as he bows his head, a loud hum emanates from below him. Halal begins to chant, Gunsta Mabarana Busta. Gunsta Mabarana Busta. Gunsta Mabarana Busta. Which means, dust, move with haste. And then a wave of light flashes in front of him, and a wormhole opens. He looks through and he sees faces from different worlds, different times, different futures, different past, and different dimensions. And as he sees these faces, he begins to be somewhat compelled to reach out to this wormhole. And he reaches out to the wormhole, and a bolt of electricity shocks his head. He looks down at his hand, shakes his head, and he puts his hand back on the ground and bows down and begins to pray again. Gunsta Mabarana Busta. Gunsta Mabarana Busta. Gunsta Mabarana Busta. And he looks up, and as he looks up into the wormhole, we fade into the present day. Pontu and Rico are walking out of the pit, and they, after facing Elijah in the last episode, and his kindred, all his kindred and all that. So Rico is kind of frantic at this point. He's like shooken up, still kind of trying to figure out what the heck just happened, what he just saw, you know, vampires and yeah, he's all screwed up right about now. And so you can see it in his actions. So he frantically says, "What was that? What are they? How do you know the what do they keep coming from, and where do you keep coming from, and why do you keep protecting me? And what's really going on, Pontu?" And Pontu replies, there's much I must explain to you in the days ahead. Let us find somewhere safe to talk, and I will reveal all I know. So they continue to walk down Sunset Boulevard, and as they walk down Sunset Boulevard, they reach the Standard Hotel. And most people know what the Standard Hotel looks like on Sunset Boulevard, but, you know, this time there's cars busy in the driveway, coming up through the driveway. There's valet running around, and a guy steps out of his Ferrari, and he reaches out for a ticket from a valet as he walks into the Standard Hotel. The glass door is there, and as you're walking through the glass doors, you see it's crowded on the inside. But off to the left, you see the diner that is at the Standard Hotel. And in that diner, there's a few people sitting at tables, but it's not as packed and crowded. So Rico and Pontu walk inside and sit down at a booth in the diner. And while they're sitting at the booth, they order, coffee. Rico orders coffee, Pontu orders tea, and they order some mozzarella sticks to munch on as an appetizer. And so as they're sitting at the table, Pontu says, many years ago, your father asked me to protect you, and I promised I would with my life. That's pretty much all he says. I'm not going to go deeper into that. As they sit down, he starts to tell them the story. And then we pop back into the flashback. Halal starts to clearly see the faces of people as they begin to see him through the anomaly. All right. Then that's when he spreads his arms out as he's bowed down. As you remember, Pontu's bowed down and he's praying. And he looks up and he sees these faces through the anomaly. And while he's looking up and seeing these faces, he raises his hand and goes, Gunsta, Mabarana, Busta, Gunsta, Mabarana, Busta, Gusta, Mabarana, Busta. And when he does that, the wormhole flips and turns and goes right above his head. And it's growing, and it continues to grow above his head. And he's continually praying or chanting to this wormhole as he's continually making it form with his chant. And as he makes it form with his chant, all of a sudden, a woman falls out of the sky screaming, "Ah!" Smack! She hits the ground, and she's passed, knocked out, cold. Then, two men fall out of the sky. Ah! And as they hit the ground, one man screams in agony. Oh! And you see his bone is popped out of it. His shin bone is popped out near his kneecap, and it's sticking out of his skin. And then the other man, who hits the ground on his side, is kind of just laying there confused and delirious, trying to figure out what's going on. As this continues to happen, Halal continues to pray harder and harder, or chant harder and harder. He's not praying, he's chanting harder and harder. And as he chants, a flurry of people start to fall out of the sky. Different people screaming and yelling, "Ah! They fall out of the sky." And they start to hit the ground. And Halal continues to chant even harder and harder. And then he looks up and he sees Pontu and Jim Pearson. As he starts to chant, and he's looking at Pontu and Jim Pearson, his voice starts to crack. Gunsta, Mabarana, Busta, Gunsta, Mabarana, Bust. And his body starts to shake. And he starts to pulsate. And he can't kind of control himself. And he's trying to chant hard. He's like, Gunsta, Mabarana, Busta, Gunsta, Mabarana. And he's getting harder and harder and harder for him to chant. And he keeps looking up at Jim and Pontu. And then he just decides to slow his chant down and stop for a second. He reaches into his cloak. He pulls out a silver orb. And he looks at the silver orb, and he turns it and tunes it. Then he looks up at the wormhole, and he throws it inside the wormhole. And it continues to whiz as he's following, and it whizzes. And there's a woman and a man falling from inside the void. And as they fall from inside the void, the orb flies back past towards the man's head and hits him right in the head. Knocks him completely out. Blood is kind of floating in the void. And the woman is kind of in shock as she sees this. You know, she's already in shock, of course, but she's in shock as she sees this, and you can see the anguish on her face as she automatically believes he just was murdered. She starts to reach out and she grabs the man and she starts pulling the man closer to him, and they continue to fall. Halal continues to pay attention to the orb as it continues to sail through the void. And as it goes through the void, it gets closer and closer to Jim and Pontu. Well, as the woman grabs the man, they fall from the sky and they fall all the way down to the ground. Halal sees them fall above his head and behind him. When they hit the ground, the woman falls on top of the man, and her impact is taken by him, yet he automatically dies. Not seconds later, the woman catches her breath. She begins to wail in agony. Halal turns around, loses his gaze on the orb and looks at her. His head kind of dips, and then he looks back up to the orb again. And as he looks back up to the orb, he's following again, and the woman cries more, and he looks back again. And his head kind of dips, and he shakes it off, and he looks back at the orb again. And he watches as the orb gets closer and closer and closer to Jim. Well, because he's not chanting, the void and the wormhole become more and more turbulent as the orb gets closer and closer inside closer and closer to the other side. And you can see the turbulence in it. It looks like a storm is brewing inside the orb around the wormhole, excuse me. And the storm continues to brew and brew. And Halal looks up for a second, and when he looks up for a second, all of a sudden he loses the orb. And he can't see it anymore. And he starts to get worried, and then all of a sudden the orb comes shooting out quicker than anything else has fallen out of the wormhole, and Jim Pearson is flying out behind him. Behind Jim Pearson, the wormhole closes. And that's all you see. Out of nowhere, people begin to appear from around all the new travelers who have just landed. And some of these people start to attack the new travelers and loot the new travelers and take men and women to be their slaves. Halal looks around for a moment, sighs and bows his head. And then he turns and walks towards the woman and the man where the woman is continually sobbing, laying on the man's chest. Halal kneels down and he puts his hands on the man's head. And he starts to chant again. He says, Gunsta medicila no bonstra ebones. Gunsta medicila na bonstra ebones. Gunsta medicina na bonstra ebones. Which means, dust men and grow new. As the woman realizes that someone's touching the man, she screams out, "Ah!" Scared, Halal gets distracted from his chant. And then he notices that the fights and the battles all around him begin to start to go out. People are starting to kill people and loot people and beat people all around, and they're getting closer and closer to them. So Halal looks at the woman as the man starts breathing again. She stops crying so much, and the tears start to slow on her eyes, and a smile begins to come across her face. And he says, "Calm." And at that time, Halal says, "Calm, child. He will survive. In time, he will be whole again. Come, let us take him somewhere safe." The woman is still somewhat sobbing, but she nods yes. Halal says, "What is your name, my child?" The woman says, "My name is Wafu, and that is my brother Tonga. Thank you for saving his life." Halal then says, "You're welcome. I am Halal Nasu. Come and let us sail to Ilben Cranius, where you two will be safe." It's actually Ilben Cranius, where you two will be safe. So that's where we're going to stop this story. There's a lot more that happens in these stories. I'm just kind of cutting to the gist of it and wrapping things around the basic part of the story. But I hope that wasn't too long. That seems like about 14 minutes, I think. Sorry it was a little bit long, but I really need to get some of that detail out for you all there. I hope you enjoyed it. And once again, if you see something in an episode that is confusing to you, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to go ahead and comment below. Leave me a comment below. Leave me a question. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, as well as, invite your friends to subscribe to this channel. Come on, folks. I'm here. I know you're around, and I'll really enjoy it. I just want to make sure I let you all know, since I don't really say subscribe, please subscribe below. Click the button. Just click the button. Well, this is Doc, and you know what time it is. It's time for me to head on out of here on the Doc Reo train. Don't forget, we got the Doc Reo roll coming up next, so stay tuned. There it is. If you need to reach us on Facebook, it's at doc.reo, yeah. On Twitter at Doc Reo Rants. On Instagram, the picture way. And every time I come, I'm here to stay. Snapping photos and get it right. It's at Doc Reo tonight. Say, on YouTube, you can't stop by Doc Reo TV. That's where you see me. That's where you see me. Hit us up on ReoBucks.com. Yeah. Back to your regularly scheduled program now. Peace. I'm out. Doc Reo TV.